Anthony Harris here, NFL veteran, entrepreneur. You checking out Scoop B Radio.
Football is still an exciting sport. Being an entrepreneur, to some, it's just as exciting. Brandon Scoopy Robinson here, Anthony Harris here. We are in there like swimwear. Hey Harris, brother, what's going on?
I'm doing well, man. On dad duty right now, handling some other stuff as well on the side. So just enjoying life.
What do you have to be quicker in doing as a safety, catching an interception against some of your favorite quarterbacks, or do you have to be quicker catching your kids running around the house?
The kids are something different. The kids, it's hard to anticipate them. Each day they're growing, they're maturing, they're learning new things, whether that's learning how to crawl, learning how to walk. You can take your eye off for them for a second, but they can be challenging as well, just as well as the games on Sunday.
For sure, for sure. You spent time with the Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, and the Philadelphia Eagles. You, to me, are very interesting because I feel like some of the best players that make impact in the NFL often are not high draft picks or they're not drafted at all. So I'm curious, when you weren't drafted, but your name was still called and you made it to an NFL roster, on a scale of 1 to 10, how determined were you to prove to people that they got it wrong?
I mean, I was extremely determined, and really my approach was just proving myself right, understanding my path to the NFL before not hearing my name called and coming in undrafted. It was my journey leading up to that. Coming out of high school, being highly recruited, being injured, seeing that dynamic change, and then same story for college as well. Having a good college career, having all of the accolades, receiving the national recognition. But when time to go to the NFL Combine and put up numbers and show some of my physical ability, I wasn't able to do that due to injury. And so for me, it was just about being able to prove myself right once again and continuing to show up when given opportunity.
At what point in your career was there a play? Was there a conversation? Was there a moment that you felt, wow, I belong?
Yeah, for me, it was a patience thing. It didn't come to me right away. I actually started on the practice squad my first year, where I took it like a professional. Learned from the guys ahead of me, learned from the guys around me at my position, at different positions. Guys who had won Super Bowls, who had played in the NFL a very long time. So I've got a lot of encouraging words, shared great mindset and perspective. But it didn't come to me until week 14 of my first year. Staying patient, learning the playbook, getting in the game on a Thursday night game versus Arizona Cardinals, playing against a veteran quarterback, playing against a lot of seasoned players as well, Larry Fitzgerald and a number of other guys. And I remember playing in that game and them throwing a deep pass and me seeing the play develop, breaking on the play as anticipated, and getting there. And ultimately, should have come down with an interception. I think it went in the stat as a PBU, so missed opportunity by me. But that was like a big play of like being able to see the game and understand the game and having the ability to go out there and put myself in position to make the play.
It's interesting. As a safety, you gotta. I feel like in basketball, that's like being the Bruce Bowen or the Shane Battier or being the defensive stopper, being a pain in the butt to some of the best wide receivers, but also looking deep at the quarterback to see his pattern and his rhythm. And talking to some people at your position, corners and safeties, we talk about just how you prepare for a wide receiver going toe to toe. Is there really a standard to go against? Because, okay, so when you look at Randy Moss or you look at Terrell Owens, to me, Randy Moss is quick, Terrell Owens is more physical. When you play, how do you prepare for each wide receiver and quarterback differently?
I think for me, just from a receiver standpoint, understanding who the receiver is, and kind of what identity that he fits into. Whether he's a speed guy, deep threat, or whether he's a guy who's a really good route runner who runs intermediate routes. and kind of understanding, what are some of his favorite routes, where do they like to target him on the field, as far as field position, what area of the field do they utilize him the most. So understanding that from a receiver standpoint, and then understanding the quarterback, understanding some of his mechanics, kind of get a feel for his rhythm, as well as competing against the offensive coordinator. Understanding who's actually calling the plays. So a little bit of that is figuring out those three dynamics, from the offensive coordinator to the quarterback to the receiver, and then kind of putting that all together.
Can you give me an example of two marquee receivers and how you may look at one and how you may look at another?
Well, I think I'll take a look at some of the guys that are doing really really explosive things right now with Tyreek Hill, and you kind of think about his career and how he started, when most people kind of just looked at him as a deep route runner. And now he's continued to develop, being able to, run those intermediate routes. And we see what he can do, once he gets the ball in his hands. So even becoming a guy who's getting some screens and being able to take the ball, 60 yards for a touchdown. You kind of look at that guy and look at what he's done and how you can be able to, minimize some of the success that he can have on the field.
Okay. Yeah. That does explain it. You had some success going up against Matt Ryan. How do you prepare for a Matt Ryan versus a former teammate of yours and a Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I think facing Matt Ryan, you've got the opportunity to kind of see what he's done over the years. Saw what type of offenses he's been in, some of the routes and some of the plays, in which they like to execute, whether that's run and play action, where you can get some deeper shots, to medium throws. But then you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, who has a big arm. He can do some of the play action stuff. He does a bit more drop back, but also his ability to run. And so we talk about being on script, being on timing, and guys like Jalen Hurts, they have the ability to beat you with their arm and beat you with their legs. And whether that's a design run, which you can kind of be more prepared for at times, but which is still tough to stop, or some of the off-script plays where they use their legs to buy time, and whether they take off and run for a first down or just simply extend the play and find somebody deep for a deeper pass. So from a defensive standpoint, the coaches can do a lot to kind of put us in position, before the play is snapped and kind of during the play. But it's when those plays get extended beyond, kind of what's expected, that gives defenses the most trouble.
Tell me something. Is Jalen Hurts the modern day Steve McNair?
I mean, I can see some similarities, from the big arm, from the mobility standpoint, being able to get out of the pocket, what he's able to do from his team. But I think in this day and age, there are some similarities between players, but players nowadays are continuing to evolve, continue to get better. The intellectual aspect and the knowledge that they have, and being able to learn from guys like that, learning from the past, and kind of evolving the game, to where it's going now. I see some similarities, but at the same time, I think Jalen Hurts is kind of his own unique player as well, and a lot of these guys in today's NFL.
It's something in the water in Virginia. I promise you. You guys are just straight athletes, from you to Michael Vick to Allen Iverson to Cam Thomas of the Brooklyn Nets. You guys are athletic, and Alonzo Mourning, I want to mention him as well. Mm-hmm. The Barber brothers, all of you Virginia guys. You guys are talented. How much did you playing quarterback in high school? You played multiple positions, but how much did playing multiple positions, particularly the quarterback position, prepare you to play professional football in the NFL?
Yeah, I think one of the unique things, kind of about the Virginia Tidewater area, Richmond area, Northern Virginia area, and just the state of Virginia in general. We don't have the luxury of some of the other places like California and Florida, where the weather is year round and you play football year round. Early on, it was being a multi-sport athlete. So not just football, but basketball, guys running track, guys playing baseball. I think those qualities that we picked up from the other sports allowed us to, bring over a little bit of crossover into the football aspect. And so for me, that helped me tremendously. Just basketball, the spatial awareness, the lateral movement, and all of those things translated over. But I didn't play quarterback until my junior year of high school. And so for me, it was a new position, but it required you to know what, all 10 other guys were doing on the field as far as offensively, as well as, what the other guys are doing across the ball defensively as well. So it made you take in a whole new perspective of learning everybody else's job, learning how we all fit together as one unit. And I think for me, that helped excel my ability to play the game at a fast pace and to be able to learn new aspects of the game as well.
I like that answer. Anthony Harris joins us over at Scoop B Radio. Subscribe on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and everywhere in between. And you, I like your perspective, and I also like that you spend a significant amount of time in a Vikings uniform. That dome to me is literally a cheat code because you got warmth in a very cold city. I feel like Minnesota for football in that dome is what Colorado is for belting out home runs in baseball in MLB. How much did you enjoy your time with the Vikings, and how do you think that dexterity of dome opening and closing and the weather, benefiting you, how much of that, just that whole encompassing part, helped you during your time with the Vikings?
Yeah, I've kind of went through both stages. Coming in as a rookie, not having a dome. So I know what it's like to have it, and I know what it's like to not have it. And so, man, outside was amazing. It kind of gave you that historic football aspect. It made the fans, have to come up and may have a drink or two, take the chill off and really get into the game. But it brought a whole nother level of, excitement to the game. But I was just as excited once we went into the indoor, being outside in those cold temperatures, going in, doing some of the tackling, laying hard hits and kind of hitting that hard ground. Doesn't always feel pleasant. But that stadium, the fans, to come in, cultivate the skull chant, the skull clap, that was, that was a major thing for the Vikings and still is. And I think when you come into that stadium, you take part in that, you feel as though, everybody's connected. It doesn't matter really where you're from, whether you flew in, you live in Minnesota, the culture, people just embrace it. And as far as the crowd noise, I don't know what it is with that roof, but that sound bounces around a good bit in there. So that's exciting as a defensive player, getting the crowd riled up, understanding that it's causing a challenge for the other team to be able to hear. That's an exciting advantage to have. So being able to, have the dome closed, have all that sound kind of locked in there, but also, earlier in the year, being able to open it up, and still kind of get that outside feel, it just continues to add a different dynamic.
Yeah, that dome experience. I went to Minnesota to a Vikings game with my best friend, and he the noise gives me vibes of going to an Oklahoma City Thunder game where it's like a college atmosphere and you got people beating on the drum, mixed with being at church and the organ being so loud that it vibrates off of the drum.
Yeah,
it's an experience that I can't totally illustrate. I can only make comparisons. So I know for you as a football player, that's intensified times a million.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think, speaking to that drum, that skull chant, that skull clap, that drum being part of it, them sounding the horn before the games. And I know you mentioned church, and that aspect and that dynamic kind of comes into it. They hit the horn, they blow the horn, fans get ready to go crazy, and everybody stands up and it kind of gets quiet, and then all of a sudden you hear the drum ring out, and you mimic that with the chant and the clap, and it's like everybody's on one accord. So it's very similar to, the choir and it being orchestrated, and it's a moment that brings everybody together with a lot of excitement.
Let me find out you about to hit me with a GP. Are you with me?
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody had a meme or something, add that up in there.
I like
Mhm.
I like that. Who were some of your I guess people at your position that growing up you either modeled your game after or you just in general enjoyed watching?
I mean, for me, I would say a lot of the guys I really, looked up to in terms of, liking their style of play. A lot of them were defensive guys, and I'm not sure if that's just the mentality, more of an aggressor aspect, on the field that I kind of took towards. But I looked at guys like Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, being close to Virginia, Ray Lewis, guys who really played the game with a lot of motion, a lot of impact, and were great players as well. But those are probably some of the staples. The Brian Dawkins, the John Lynch, all those guys were, Hall of Fame caliber players. Had a great careers. Really connected with the fan base, and they really, engulfed themselves in the football culture. And they had just this aura about them that was just different than a lot of other players.
You segue perfectly because it's a trick question, but it's a real question. Is there such a thing as playing safety, corner, or any defensive position, even middle linebacker, and not talking sugar honey iced tea?
And say it again.
Is there such thing as being a defensive player and not talking sugar honey iced tea? That's an acronym. Shit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think everybody has it. Some guys, they start the game like that. That gets them going, and that's part of their aura of who they turn into when they put that helmet on. So some guys, that's them all the time. Some guys speak it to themselves, and some guys speak it outwardly to other players. So I think everybody kind of carries that dynamic and that chip on their shoulder. All of the great ones do. And that's something that you have to have to be an extremely competitive person. Like, you don't have to outwardly, say different stuff to different players or get caught on camera. But I'd probably almost guaranteed if you ask, some of the most successful players, not just across the football landscape, but the other sports as well, there's this alter ego that they battle with inside of themselves, and that really pushes them over the edge to be the player that they are.
Dígame, as my Hispanic brothers and sisters would say. Can you tell me a story about some of the funniest trash talk that you've heard on the football field? And I need names.
Man, for me, I can't really remember a lot of trash talk that might have been funny. I don't know if I was just totally locked in. A lot of times I'll just zone in on what we're supposed to be doing on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's doing a lot of communicating, making sure everybody's in the right spot, making sure I'm, gathering as much information before a play as possible. But I guess for me, one of the trash talking moments that I kind of remember for me and some players was one of the years in Philly, we were playing in Washington. They're ahead by a little bit. It's a lot of time left, and there's a fan and this son behind the bench, and they're kind of trying to heckle the players a little bit, and they're excited, they're winning, and so I just casually, other guys kind of kept going back and forth, but I just looked over and I kind of casually just like tapped my wrist, like point to the scoreboard, like, man, it's a lot of time left, like we'll see. And surely but slowly, we started making plays. We started getting some turnovers. The offense went down and scored, and I came back to the bench and I'm just kind of like shaking my head, and it's like, you paid for your ticket, your front row, you came to see the show, and so, we're gonna give you a show. You just be patient. And I go out there next drive, I make a big hit. We come to the sideline, offense goes down and scores, and basically, it's kind of like, we don't hear you now. And I'm just like, this is what you wanted, right? So you kind of got to be careful what you ask for. But I don't really get into it with the fans too much or other players on the field. I kind of just like for, the results at the end of the game to kind of say what they say, and hopefully they're in our favor.
I like that. That's the clean version, and we'll accept it, Mr. Harris. The one thing that I think is very acceptable is you doing a lot in the community, not just as a dad, but also with your foundation. Tell me more about your foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I started the Anthony Harris Foundation a few years back, and for me, it was, I had been taking part in a lot of different charity events, whether that was supporting other organizations, trying to utilize my platform to, help other organizations gain a bigger platform, or either just spread the message that they were trying to get out. And so, for me, I wanted to, create something where I can kind of start to build a legacy myself, for my family to continue to carry on and give back. And so for me, I had a lot of individuals growing up that helped supported me along the way, whether that was coaches, teachers, just kind of strangers at times that I've come to get to know over time. And so for me, it was just about understanding that I had a support system outside of my family who supported me as well. But being able to have a strong support system of other individuals, some of who traveled that landscape that you're traveling on, to be able to provide that for other individuals is something that I wanted to do.
I like that answer. I like that answer. Where can people find more information about your charity?
At the Anthony Harris Foundation on Instagram, as well as the Anthony Harris .org on online as well. They can go up there, check out what we've done over the past few years, check out some of the events that we have coming up as well.
And tell me something. In football and in basketball recently, there's been a lot of talk on both sides just about the notion of NBA players being able to seamlessly transition into football, and football players who could potentially make that same jump to the NBA. How hard is that, do you think, on either side?
I mean, I think, some of the guys who probably come into, the NFL or NBA early on might be an easier transition for them. As guys, become more involved in that professional sport or respective sport, they tend to, focus more on some of the skill sets that help them excel. And so I think, over time, unless you continue to just work on some of your career athletic abilities, continue to go and, as a football player, go to the gym, get some basketball workouts in every now and then, to help with your coordination, to help with, some of your agility and response and reaction time. I think it'll be a tough transition. There's a lot of debate on which one would be an easier transition and for who. I think to transition from basketball to football would probably be more difficult, even just from a physical standpoint. Basketball players, they're in shape, they do a lot of running, they have a lot of different skill sets, but they're not out there every day professionally tackling each other, blocking people and doing some of those techniques that may take to excel and play football. So I think football players transition into the basketball aspect might be a little bit easier. Not that one would go out and score 30 or 40 a night, but to go out there, be able to play defense, knock down a couple open shots, as well as just being able to be a rebounder or transition as a defender, I think it would be a lot easier for football players to do it.
Could LeBron James currently make a transition to the NFL as a tight end?
I've heard that one. He still has a ton of athletic ability. His IQ for the game of basketball is amazing. So I can only imagine when it comes to just spatial awareness, knowing where everybody is. If you give him some time in the meeting room, he'd be able to understand defenses, to be able to understand the leverage and the position aspect. And I think he'd probably be able to transition to football.
Could Lamar Jackson make the same transition as a quarterback to the NBA?
I haven't seen Lamar Jackson play basketball, so I'm not sure. But if I could probably think about some guys from the NFL who would be able to transition to basketball, I'd probably have to take a look at Um, Miles Garrett, as a big man in the NBA. We've seen clips of him, playing at open gyms and stuff like that, and what he's doing. But I just think from his sheer size, strength, and athletic ability, he'd make a good big man.
I like your assessment, Professor. I think you may be onto something, Anthony Harris. What when you're not talking about football and when you're not running your foundation, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to hang out with my family. We're doing cookouts, grilling, and I like to eat, so I like food. So being able to spend time with the people that I love and I care about, that's important to me. So whether that's back home in Virginia, whether they come down to Florida and get some of that Sunshine State, I enjoy being by the water, as well as I just enjoy learning, continue to expand myself, expand my knowledge. I like to travel. I like to talk business. What's going on with the different markets and economies, and just learning more about the world that we live in, how it works.
Last question. The big game, you're suiting up this season. What's on your playlist?
For me, I would probably have to say some of Gunna's new music that he's dropping. I know there's a big Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef going on in the music industry right now, but I'm a Drake guy as well as Rod Wave. It just depends on which mood I'm in, and so each artist has a different ability to get into a different mindset. So sometimes it could be a more up tempo song, just more I guess warrior mentality, more about going against adversity, or it could be something along of Rod Wave where he's probably a little bit more in tune with his emotion. He's talking a little bit more about his family, being away from them. So that as well can be motivating. For me, it's not all about the tempo of the song. Sometimes the lyrics can play as big as a part as well. So it really just depends. I put a number of artists together and just let it flow.
Everybody say OVO, OVO.
Yeah.
Brother, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Keep shining, keep grinding. I'll be seeing you soon.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Amen.